Nice. Now it's recording and it's Wednesday. It's July the 17th. We are in a Catalyst after town hall with some Catalyst people here. And voting happened yesterday. No, not voting happened yesterday. This happened before voting. Results have been out yesterday. So a lot of people here, most likely proposers, reviewers, and voters, with most likely still some fresh emotions and experiences. And the session here is mainly to give a stage to everybody and simply sharing from your perspective what worked well or what didn't work well in Catalyst Fund12. Like, would be cool to make the round, give everybody enough time. So please don't go for fucking 10 minutes about philosophy, why it should be different. Like, try to keep yourself short. This would be hell of awesome. But besides that, there's not really an agenda, and everybody pretty much to speak up and share their experiences. But mainly, yeah, what do you think? What worked well and what didn't work well? Catalyst Fund12. And it's recording, and now it's up to people here. So, anybody who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Go for it, Christine.
We have been involved in multiple funding rounds, and this funding round, we definitely put a lot more into being public, being in spaces. Our CEO went to the Builder Fest and he spoke there. By being so public and talking to everybody we could, we started actually being asked to come on Twitter Spaces to talk about our proposal, and that was pretty wild. So for me, it was just really, it drove home what I kind of already knew, and that was just how important the community engagement is for your proposal. Having a great proposal isn't really enough. You have to really have the community behind you.
Definitely good insight, though. Does this fit into what worked well or what didn't work well? I mean, it's a fucking good insight. So,
I mean, having submitted a proposal and looking at these reviews, oh my God, oh my AI. I mean, I'm looking at the reviews on our proposal, and so many of them, I'm like, a person did not write that. That was definitely not a person. So I definitely see room for improvement there, because I look at that stuff. I want to know what people thought, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. And I got a lot of fake news.
that's a good point. Thanks, Christina. This was for Blink Claps. And I love the title of your proposal. Definitely was a no-brainer.
Oh my God. I know.
Do you
Chris
want
is
the
so
Cardano?
happy.
Yes.
Everybody
The
loves my
art of
proposal name.
Yes, everybody loved your proposal name, and
Yes.
Felix just said that was his favorite.
How to mix memes with proposals effectively. I mean, Blink Labs, you do an awesome job there. Really well deserved. Thanks a lot.
For everybody in the room, just remind us of the proposal name again.
Was it, do you want a Go Cardano node? Because this is how you get a Go Cardano node.
Yeah.
Is it true that you guys don't blink over at Blink Labs?
Yeah, never blink. You're a dork.
Nice.
Danny started it.
Then who else would like to go for it? What do you think? What worked well? What didn't work well? Hey, Darlington, if you're unmuted already, go for it, man.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Yes.
Yeah, you're.
What didn't work well? Definitely the reviews. That was hard to get them into the tooling, and then as a proposer, it was hard to actually take them, because so a lot of, just one out of the 4 proposals Lido had got funded. And we were saying, well, you look at the feedback, you look at the reviews, you edit your proposal for next fund, but that's going to be challenging to do, to get the feedback. Yeah. But as far as what worked well, the whole fund, really. I mean, it seems like people were engaged. It was very loud. The thing Christina said about engaging with the community is important, because we spend all our time talking about other people's proposal and not our own. And I think that reflected in the result.
I feel your problem. I feel you. Help all the others to get funded and then recognizing, but wait, nobody gives a shit about you.
I hope you remembered to vote for yourself at least.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but what worked well, I think the funds, the overall fund worked well. The community engagement is fun to see groups participating, MinSwap, the other lending platform, even Cardano Foundation. Yeah, it might maybe a Fund 13 proposal. It might, or maybe we have DREPs coming. So further engage, further participation, like what we have with the DEXs so far. I think that's good. A good direction to have going forward. So I thought that worked well.
Nice ones. Much agree. Ubio, yeah, Shansat, go for it, man.
Yeah, I would say every round seems to be an improvement on the previous round. That's what I have at least noticed since joining the ecosystem. What worked well, I wouldn't know how to number because there are a lot of them, so I'll just mention a few. One was the introduction of the real world category. That was quite an innovation, and I really believe in the prospect of that particular category. 50% of it was funded, 60, that's 6 out of 12. And I went through the beautiful real world partnerships that this is going to bring. So I really love that, right? So two things about that category that really makes it something that worked for me is the fact that whether you get funded or not, there is already a lot of conversation going in that space, which would not have happened, right? So for example, you needed to go talk to a particular organization and tell them about Cardano, try to get partnerships in order to bring them in, and then already they start seeing the process and all of that. And I was commenting to someone on Twitter today who said, oh, but FC Barcelona didn't get funded. And I was like, nah, the partnership still exists, whether it's Fund 13, Fund 14. So whenever it gets in, that partnership, so the key part about it is the fact that we've already created a strategic partnership that we can use, keep coming, and then until whenever the community says yes, right? And I told someone, I said, the community is not necessarily saying no, we are saying not yet, right? So there's difference between no and not yet. So we can see it in the amount of people that voted. So for me, that category was such an a crazy one, a very beautiful innovation to the process, and kudos to the team that actually thought about that. Also, I would want to comment on the Catalyst, what's the name for that? The in-house, the in-person activity that was done prior to the to Catalyst. I felt that also created a lot of mobilization. And I think I saw, now this is a personal observation, I saw from the Asian region, from the Japanese region, a lot of engagement, much more than I had seen. That does not mean they've not been engaging. It's just that it became much more visible through that whole physical activity that started, and I was able to follow up and see what they're doing from that region. A very awesome one. What did not work well? So I am still conflicted about why do we do reviews if reviews do not count, right? So for example, during the voting, sometimes the reviews do help me to, I can just go in and check maybe top on the impact, top on the sustainability, on feasibility, and just try to make my votes based on that. But I feel along the way, along the line, I didn't see that. I don't know, I think it was removed. So that made me, it made the process of searching and filtering to be a lot more. So obviously I'm in for whatever will make the process better, but for those that want to use that as a metric, it should be available. And then I feel there should be much more metrics for people to filter down, because going through 1,000 plus proposals can be quite hard, right? So for example, on Little Nation, we do have filtering on this thing. So I think the vote should also have something similar as well. So we can have those filtration systems that can narrow down the proposals, and then we can go through and check through what we want to vote. Finally, and then so post the process, what did not work? So I'm expecting that after we're done with voting, I should be able to go to my voting app and see the projects that I voted for, that I've actually gotten funded, right? So I so the app right now only serves the purpose of just voting, but I should be able to look at and be like, oh, I voted for 100 projects. Out of that, 20 got funded. There is a feeling that comes with that, right? Knowing fully well that you are able to you contributed to the success of these projects. And I think it also gave us a basis where people try to now want to follow up a project, because now they feel much more engaged and much more connected to that particular project. Yeah, but generally,
Nice.
awesome one.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Udia. Then, Seydou, you have your hands up, and after this, Alex would love to call you up.
Yes, so thanks so much. And then Fund 12 emotion is coming down. And then congratulations to all those who got funding. And then to work well, I'll start with regards to the communication from the Catalyst team to the entire members of the Catalyst participants. The communication really went well from the start of the Catalyst working groups workshop. That was at the lunch. Communication was very effective, and then information was available for everyone to have access to it, and then make informed decision with regards to Fund 12. So communication, kudos to the Catalyst team, and then as well as Lido also give us access to information with regards to marketing of our projects, because when you have a trend of number of people who are expressing interest with regards to your proposal, it give you some sense of direction where to do, what not to do. And then the various idea fest, which was also organized, I think we should encourage those people to do it so that the newcomers into the ecosystem could always have a place to go in and share their ideas and then do it. And then back to the reviews. This reviews things, we have to say it and then we have to repeat it. And it started at the end where some of the committee reviewers were excluded with regards to the reviews. At that stage, a lot of people that we onboarded to cut down, they were having questions to ask, and then we told them to exercise patience. It was just out of hand, and then this will not be repeated on force. So I think we should try our possible best and get all registered people. If as soon as we register to do community reviews, at least you should give them some chance to participate and do the review, because we are completing and seeing a lot of AI reviews and code. And then the moderation too. Oh, I myself am a moderator, but we realized that a lot of reviews was flagged for AI, which was not so. I don't know how come these reviews were flagged for AI purpose, which was not really AI reviews. I think if you just want to moderate all reviews submitted, we should find a way to do it rather than flagging it, because a lot of the reviewers were taking it for granted, excluding people's reviews for no reason. And then we know it's sad that when you have two of your reviews flagged out, you are out of in the system, no matter the number of time that you spend, the energy. And this is something causing some frustration among our committee members. So I think we have to do that. And then the last, I'll comment on the voting app. Indeed, we have about 1,000 plus proposals to go through. And then at time, if we can have some progress bar in the voting app to tell you the number of proposals that you have already cast votes. Maybe when you go to a particular chain known as the ecosystem, about 300 proposals there. And then if you have cast 2 or 10 votes, it should tell you have cast 10 votes in this challenge. Maybe a progress bar like we have in the moderation page. So we should be able to do that in the voting, because sometimes you don't know whether you have already voted for all proposal or not. So you have to always sort it out and then go through and go through and go through. That is those who don't make list. And then I think another thing is the QR code, because here, because I'm an admin of my community, Cardano Ghana community, 2 people reach out to me to help them connect their wallet to participate in the voting. And I asked them of the 4 digits that they received when they were doing the registration. They said they lost it. And then once we lost this 4 digits, and then we cannot proceed to participate in the voting. I think we should find ways, and then maybe if you register to participate and then along the line, you lost the 4 digits or the QR code, you should be able to reclaim it in some way and then participate in the voting. So these are some of the things that we find on our end, and then we will fill in the forms as well and then see what works, and then how we can improve it better as we move into the vote. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, brother. It was some really good insights. It's interesting already, very diverse on the pro side. On the con side, we definitely see some themes already. Or everybody mentioned so far the reviewers already. I think one important note is to say we speak about the proposal reviewers, not about the milestone reviewers later. Right. So not to kind of confront the both. And already on so some better interfaces for voting engagement. But back to the thing then. Alex, would you mind to speak up? Because I saw your message on the live chat. I said, ooh.
I'm happy to chat, but I'm more in a listening mood. So if anybody wants to kind of come up and chat, share a bit of their experience, I'd much prefer that.
Okay, awesome. Awesome.
I will add a bit of maybe milestone reviewers, even though there is a pro and con on the same thing, on that same role. Because that happened at the time when I was traveling and there was like delays, and every 2 or 3 days you have to be responding in news, and I was able to like on time share it, but I was already shared these proposals away, and because I wasn't responding, the team just kind of moved on. Would be good if sometime there is like a more scale and there is option to kind of get delays, but then later kind of seep into a proposal or additional reviewer in case there are some like changes. However, the previous milestone review still continued on, and so I kind of kept in touch with the same Gate, Lido Nation, some Japanese books. So there were several reviews I could look, and that always gave me like every week something to read through. And then I went, and as soon as you get in the Lido Nation, you're gonna so many diamonds there, but you're gonna click, and then you're lost into other proposals or lost in other projects or milestones. So it's always fun to kind of have this. You do a task, you remind yourself what was project about, you give them the review, and then you explore a little what is in the immediate vicinity. So this was kind of my good and bad experience from milestone reviewer side. I also signed up for the new one. Now it's a good timing because now it's all vacation, so I'm fully focused on getting all the milestone checks in and make sure that I don't miss out this one.
Nice. This is cool because usually we get not that much insights actually from milestone review so far. It's still one of the more newer roles as well, right? But that's cool. Who else would like to go for it? What do you think? What worked well, didn't work well in Fund12? I see a bunch of good people here. But maybe all in listening mode. When you're in listening mode, then what do we do?
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it. Questions are cool also.
I'm wondering, like previous iterations, always after funding, people are like, oh my God, so much went there and so much went there. This time I don't really hear it. Every now and then I get good news. Oh, this got funded, a lot of community like updates and very little negativity. So I'm wondering, was voting good? Has the previous fund changed the mind of voters who look like, oh, there's a backlash, people are arguing about why these proposals didn't get funded? Maybe they looked into it and now more and more like, and I have of course my bias. I see like Swarm Network and many places and like, whoa, you got funded, oh no, this is cool. And I see an ecosystem growing again. So wondering how others feel about how votes did and who they favored and who didn't they favor.
Yeah, maybe there's ideas around there around how do we feel about the distribution of projects, the quality of proposals, the sorts of areas where we seem to converge, and where we know which proposals got really high voting powers now. Are those the sorts of projects that we actually all agreed upon that we should be supporting, right? And then I think what's really interesting is what's out there on the fringes, what was supported and got approved that didn't necessarily have as much of the voting power support as what some of the big projects got. Like, how do we feel about all of that? Like, it's interesting dynamics.
I love interesting dynamics. I much agree. But also what you mentioned, Tivon, I much agree there. Like, I think like Darlington mentioned before, like the noise was really strong, but compared to, let's say, from 10.9, where it was really aggressive, like it's becoming really much more productive noise. I'd say there's very much less attacks against projects or, hey, this is whole bullshit and nothing makes sense and this whole shit show. Like, I think atmosphere around voting becomes much more healthy, actually. It's nice to see community maturing there.
Seems that way, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. Really, like, removing the downvote was like small parameter, massive. Yep. And Seydou, you have your hands up again.
Yes, just to add to regards to the voting power, I think we have to give kudos for the decision to remove the downvoting. But I want to ask, this is a question about the 1% of the voting power. It seems now that I think the Cardano Foundation is in and then the other big bucks is coming to register and participate in the voting round, is it not raising the total snapshot voting power high so that at least we see people having 45 million votes, 40 million votes, but they are not getting funding? I don't know if there's a way that we can do it such a way that the threshold for getting funding, maybe for a particular challenges, will not be the same as all different. Because 1%, a lot of challenges I'm seeing in it. Because if someone comes to register, let's say, with 30 million voting power and decide to vote for 2 or 3 proposals, what happens to the other proposals? So these are something that we have been discussing here internal with our community, and we are seeing that maybe if the 1% can be subjective, and then let's see how best we can do it. But this is just a question because since it's now making funding difficult for a lot of proposals in our end here. Yes.
That's a good point, but maybe let's try to translate this into a statement and for maybe what doesn't work, right? To say, hey, maybe the same parameter, the same threshold for all categories, maybe is not always the best fit. So in your case, you propose that there are different parameters to show thresholds to different categories. Right?
Exactly. Okay. If we get it that way, I think it will work than making it fixed for all categories. Yes.
Cool. No, I agree. And that's the thing, right? I think what is cool is that Catalyst has this iterative design, and that I think after 3 years we can trust Catalyst team that they move it in the right direction. Also, guys, don't forget we voted for them back in Fund 10, right? They are funded proposer, as many of you here in the room as well. So that's a good thing, and I think we can see they definitely move it in the right direction, right? And it's iterative design. So ideally, this is also why sessions like today they are just helpful, right? Getting some people together, sharing some insights. Danny and Chris even took the time to join in, and the guys are listening, right?
Danny,
So-
I mean, do you want to say anything about we did some sensitivity analysis on the threshold. We sort of looked at some modeling. And I think might be useful just to kind of context. I mean, bottom line was we looked at what the difference would be if, and maybe Daniel go into a bit more detail, and the approach that we took actually didn't make a great deal of difference to how the sorts of projects that will actually get funded. But Danny, let's maybe pause on that. You can maybe color in if you can remember the specifics of the model that we looked at.
So I think it would be difficult to explain the context here. Just simply have probably some gaps. So I'll be just honest. I'm probably having a bit of a brain fart there. But generally, like, maybe just to give a bit of a context of like why the 1% actually exists. It's like one of those security parameters that actually, and there's an argument that in some instances it might be better to be suited with a higher threshold and lower thresholds. There is some room to maneuver in terms of trying to figure out in which elements it makes sense. The only thing is that making the threshold, it generally currently doesn't seem to be an indicative of a needed change, because every funding round you seem to have enough projects that deplete the entire funding round, right? Generally, where if not enough projects are capturing people's imagination in terms of like attracting enough stake, what generally happens is that you will end up having with treasury funds which are unspent for that fund. And I think even in the latest round, I think the unspent round was it like 10,000, 20,000 or something like that. So
there was only something like 28 proposals that were approved but not funded.
Yeah.
And to me, that means that, given that there was 1,200 proposals on the ballot, with only, say, give or take 30 proposals that have reached the threshold, but then weren't funded because of the budget line draw, like where the funding runs out in a category over what else was approved and funded. There's not a massive delta. If that 30 number of the projects that were approved but not funded, right? They reached the threshold, but they didn't get the budget approval. If that number was not 30, was like 300, and there were so many more projects that were getting it, and that you could say, okay, well, it's definitely not working, right? Like too many projects are reaching the threshold. But then, if there was only like one or two, and when we get down to really small numbers, it's an interesting test. Like if we were to remove it or to reduce it to allow more projects to get approved, well, where would the budget probably line draw run out anyway? And would that then mean that you just have a bunch more projects that were approved but not funded because the budget wasn't available to them? So there's interesting modeling that needs to take place and to kind of consider different scenarios. But as I said, Danny mentioned, it didn't give the indication that it needed to change because of how many projects were approved but not funded, right? It was a small number as opposed to a big number, or there were none, right? It was too aggressive. There was just too many that were just totally out of scope for the threshold. Didn't meet the threshold at all. It's interesting ideas though to play around with, and there are variables that can be tested and we can consider. Like maybe what we should be thinking about. And perhaps we're not going to have this for Fund 13, but as a community, we should agree on some expectations. What are the KPIs of these parameters that we would expect to hit? We can look at 13 funds worth of data at that point and say, well, for 14, 15, and 16, we'd expect these, and this is the test. And if it doesn't meet the test, what will be the alternative? What else could we try, right?
And I think the only like category where this was more evident in terms of approvals, because I think if you look at it through all of the categories, you see that the budget was pretty much on par depleted very fast in each one of them, even before the threshold issue would come in. So that's basically the difference between the yellow results of like over budget and then approval threshold. So all of the categories actually have depleted the budget almost exhaustively, which is encouraging to see. The one which didn't and had a large overhang would be the concept. But also you could arguably see that there could be also a signal that, first of all, concepts are, I guess, what we would call like moonshots, like those unproven crazy ideas, let's say, that people have to begin with. Crazy, I mean, in a good sense, right? Like that unproven, and trying to get that proof of concept off the ground. There's still 50 of them which actually went through. And knowing that this is arguably, you could say that's the riskiest category because a lot of these projects are unproven. comparatively fund on fund, it still yielded 50 unique ideas to sort of give a try and see where they land with the seed. I think in the previous funding round, was it 70-ish?
50 brand new ideas is great, right?
Which is a great
new experiments. Whether we get to 50 or 80, I mean, I don't think it's that significant.
What it could signal is that maybe the concept category is over budgeted presently. That's also another way how to look at it, that maybe the concept category should have a lower budget and maybe relocated somewhere else in terms of like figuring out where the appetite on voter prioritization is a little bit. So that's just another idea to throw out there.
Lots of ideas, right?
But before going into ideas, because ideas are dangerous beasts, let's try to stick to reflections on what happened. Much easier to grasp. On this point, I would love to read out what John posted in the chat, just for the recording. Thanks, John. First, what went bad when was the AI reviews, making the review system almost completely useless. Hopefully, this will get much better once the IDs are introduced. Dreaming further, the IDs, brother. Another point is some key elements are still missing from the voting app, such as the percentage of the fund's proposal is requested and what part of a challenge budget we have already used through our existing or pending votes. What went well is that the voting experience through the voting app was much better and more effective. Yep, the quality of the projects also seem to have improved overall. Much agree on this. Like quality of proposals was insane, like really good. And for you, Darlington, new Light Donation features were also useful indeed. I wish we could simply import the ballot in the voting app. Oh yeah, actually I want to have a vote front end button on my landing page where I outline the proposal. But I agree, Light Donation is a gem. And Darlington, thanks a lot for everything you do there. Most of it voluntarily.
One downside, even though I didn't vote this round, I saw pictures of people voting and doing tools and playing around with it. And I still noticed there isn't mass voting option, which is, for me, if I would come back to vote, I would have Excel sheets of different people and measurements, and I would want to go to voting app to just cast the vote, not go there, find that, and spend another 4 hours to find 100 proposals. And I heard now there is even more proposals than back in the time. So I would just spend the entire time just copy pasting stuff and finding, and that wouldn't be very nice experience.
I remember you voting on all proposals. I think it was also Fund 6 or 7, like 800 proposals, and you voted on every fucking single one.
Well, I just gathered information. I have a different strategy how to vote. I use trust and sociocracy a bit more to leverage.
You know where people always are so hungry about like where to look for alpha, where to look for the edge, where to look for that like very early information. You could argue that actually reading and chewing and being, spending all those hours in the Catalyst hallways through the proposals which are being submitted and ultimately then later on funded or voted upon, it's a phenomenal head start that you are getting from the information that you're gathering from that innovation. And I don't want to say it from any of like the investments theses, but sort of like if you wanted to see where the themes and directions are going, it's like a front row seat. And obviously it's not for everyone, but I think that's the fascinating part, that you can get such some decent future insight if you participate deeply enough in Catalyst, because you see the trends before they become a mainstream, if that can even be a thing of Twitter.
Well, it is indeed.
Well, I had to check the numbers twice when I saw that the sum of the yeses and the abstain were almost the same. When it's round up, they're both 61 billion. It's like, I guess people have found the abstain button. I don't know what that means.
It does say in the app that it encourages you to cast those votes for the privacy reasons. So I would assume, because that's each time you're presented with that model a little bit, but yeah, it's good to see.
Isn't abstain adding to the weight of votes so that the threshold is increasing? So they're like, they don't know, but they want to increase the threshold. So it's basically same as no voting.
Yeah, it's the privacy preserving element, because the moment you remove the duality nature of the vote, you're basically just saying like, yeah, I voted, and then it's essentially, even without saying it, you know what everybody voted for if it's the single choice. This way, there is some mystery to it. Like, did it go this way or did it go that way? And that's the beauty of the cryptographically verifiable privacy voting.
Myself also quite surprised on. I didn't assume that abstain voting would have been used that much, but actually it was. Like, well, what the fuck? quite interesting to see it.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously often not talked about, but there are obviously a CLI user group, and they might well have automated abstain all in their own use case, right? I think it's fair that we call it out. It is something that of a known vector, so just worthwhile being aware of. Not much we can do about it. It's part and parcel of the game and the system in place, right? So by game I mean part of the rule set. It's possible, so it's part of the game. Rules of engagement.
Well, that's agree.
And I have a question. How many proposals do I have to vote? To have the privacy part.
Oh, just like just
with one.
A few numbers, right? Like you would want to. Doesn't need to be 50-50, but probably you want to make.
But more than one.
Yeah, I mean, generally what it does is the more participation of the diversity of the kinds of votes which are being cast into that common basket of the things, you're increasing the security elements or what do you call them?
Got it.
Security properties of actually increasing your privacy. So the more you mix it up, the more complicated is it to actually unpack what is your voting pattern. And also, if you're the only one voting in the category, and there's only one vote, that would be, you could say straight away that was you. But the moment you start adding more and more additional bits of pieces of information into the common put, then it's very difficult to discern of like any degree of accuracy that like, yeah, you voted for this or that. This might be a little bit different depending on the type of the voter you are. The bigger you are, the more difficult is it for you to hide, if that makes sense, right? Like, so if there's a 50 million wallet and a 1,000 wallet, and you see that one choice had a 50, and even though they mixed up the votes, that what was the profile of the voters in there. So the depth of the participants, the size of the wallets, and also how many of them are casting the variety of the votes, it's sort of like at each of the step of the way, it strengthens the privacy and the security properties of your vote being not possible to discern which way you voted.
Got it. Gotcha. Thank you for that, Ali. Yeah, one of the things that I noticed is that if I have 5 wallets to vote, let's say 10 proposals, so I have to. Is there a way to have that voting multi wallet? Because it takes a lot of time.
We have to just give us time because we've got voices in development. Out of the box.
Yeah, but if you want to
deliver this next milestone, guys, what's going to happen is when Voices turns on, it'll be all wallets that are CIP30 compliant will be already interacting with Catalyst Voices.
Step by step.
About 30 wallets or something currently.
Yep, I have a question because when I joined here, I said I was hungry for knowledge, and I haven't been able to participate Catalyst after town halls and town halls themselves. I'm wondering, are participants here who have been more regular visitors seeing, and how has this kind of environment change or engage, or like governance here? Are people talking about how to improve Catalyst? Are people more talking about how to improve proposals? What has been like the general themes in these town halls themselves and after town halls?
A lot of that energy was translated into the working groups. I don't know if you caught the the events throughout the world. So there was a lot of them. There's lots of wonderful reports coming back that the team is aggregating. So the folks at the Sustainable ADA as well. And essentially there's lots of great learnings from all of it. So hopefully, you know, in a month's time or so, we're gonna have some first outputs to come and see what's up. But I think most of that energy has been concentrated around the Catalyst working groups because it had a specific mandate around specific themes to basically drive and focus the conversation about specific those 3 areas of topics so that it can have some actionable outcomes out of them. Because one thing we're not bad at is soliciting feedback as an ecosystem from every shape and the direction. What's more difficult is figuring out how and which one to prioritize, and then which rabbit hole to dive into first, because there's so many of them.
Thibaut, what is actually quite cool, no idea who is actually doing the slide donation or Blink Labs, but somebody keeps the after town hall pipeline sheet, which we created back in 2021 alive. So it's still updated. I put the link here in the live chat, and you can actually see who is hosting rooms and on which topics. Whoever is doing this is awesome. I have no idea who is updated.
We just chatted today, right? Like, Felix, what was the number of the breakout rooms?
In total, since we started, 800 something. Like
835.
Quite a number.
That's amazing, Felix, right? It's
Well,
amazing what you think, to think about, you know, when we started all out on this pathway, and then soon enough we're at 1,000 community run sessions, and that's just the ones that are counted within this, you know, silo, within this pillar, right? Think about there's everything else that goes on in their own silos. It's wild the amount of stuff that's going on.
Much agree. And Simon just posted in chat. It's actually him, together with Pete, Walcott, and Darlington and Christine. Thanks a lot, Oliver. You're awesome.
Yeah.
And Alex, can I come back to you, dude? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure. I've been listening in, and I think I can, like, you know, connect with a lot of the points that were made. And I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways was that there were a ton of really, really, really good technical proposals that came through, stuff that I think we'd seen the community kind of talk about and even wonder about for months. So I think from like a technical perspective and adding new capabilities to Cardano, the ZK stuff, the layer 2 stuff, some interoperability things, like it's, and even like from a tuning perspective, I think it was a fantastic success. I think for me, the most difficult thing is Darlington still here? No, he's not. One of the tough things was when I was extracting stuff from Lido Nation to help the CF kind of set up its kind of voting stuff, is the Catalysts, what is it? Like metrics, like the impact, feasibility, auditability metrics didn't extract with it. And that actually made it tough. So we had to like kind of do a lot of manual work behind the scenes for that. So, but he mentioned that it was tough extracting some of the review stuff. So hopefully that can get fixed for Fund 13. Because if you're talking about reviewing proposals at scale, you really need to be able to kind of extract that into a CSV and extract as much information from a CSV as possible. Again, I'm not a technical person, so I probably missed a couple of things here and there. I could probably go straight to the source with idea scale and a few other things. I think the main thing that came out of this was the accessibility of Catalyst as an onboarding tool for external people, whether they are developers, whether they are non-technical folk. I think it's already kind of a big thing to kind of get into a grants process, and the Catalyst team has made it way easier over the funds. But then when it comes to the social layer and the voting and like the platforming on social media, etc., that seems to be gate kept quite strongly. And I think, you know, when it comes to the often discussed Barcelona proposal, which was essentially brought to Catalyst by a bunch of Cardano OGs, right? So it came from like Nmaker and Damio, who've been doing Catalyst for years and years and years. People just saw Barcelona and say, hey, these guys that want to get their hands on our treasury. No. Or maybe that's not the case, right? We need to do a deeper analysis, and it's a little bit too early to say. Right now, it seems like a lot of people voted for this proposal, but also like a lot of whales may not have or may have selected something else. And so this is also feedback that we got from a couple of new entrants into the ecosystem. It's like, how do we market? Who do we speak to? Where do we go to kind of make our voice heard? And so I think that's like a big gap that we have right now. But that's at the social layer, right? That's something that I think is an ecosystem we've grown used to, being us against the world. And that's challenging to kind of reconcile with people wanting to build on Cardano and being treated perhaps with a little bit of distrust or, you know, things like that. So I think that's a social layer thing, and that can be worked on. From the CF side, we realized how much work as an organization. I mean, I knew this because I've been an active lurker in Catalysts for years, but as an organization, I think we realized how much work actually goes into the proposing, the reviewing, the voting of this kind of stuff. And it was a massive learning experience. I think in this case, we really tried to have the smallest amount of impact that we could. You know, we just said, hey, we'd participate in Catalyst at the Catalyst launch event. We only voted with the smallest operationally possible wallet. And these you can see on pool.pm, you can see that our wallets are typically balanced at 20-ish million ADA. Which does not even kind of push, it's a large wallet, yes, but it doesn't push proposals past the voting threshold, for example. And we didn't announce which proposals we would support before the voting ended. So as not to kind of skew the kind of, or be accused of skewing perhaps voter perception of saying, hey, like CF is voting this way, and that means they're telling us to vote that way. So it was a really interesting exercise to perform internally, and to some extent externally as well, you know, gathering some feedback from the community in some of the 3 after town halls we had earlier in the year. A lot of the feedback that actually came out of there was super helpful, and it was material in shaping how we behaved in this fund. So I just want to give a big shout out to the Catalyst team, as well as everybody that works super hard on having these after town halls. Like, it was a massive help. And without kind of, you know, confirming or denying things, like, I hope that CF will be back in Fund 13 in a bigger, better way. And you can kind of qualify those adjectives as you want. Right now, we still need to kind of look at how this worked out. We're now going to look at how the community's reacted to this. We've tweeted out about this. We see some positive responses from people that follow us, some negative responses about, you know, whether or not CF should indeed vote in governance proposals. And yeah, all of these are really interesting insights as we're, you know, about to very clearly jump into Voltaire, right? And yeah, I think it's a really valuable fund for everybody involved. And yeah, happy to take any kind of questions, comments about CS participation in all of this, positive or negative. We like all kinds of feedback.
I mean, Alex, if I start off, I think, you know, your role and the CS role in this fund in particular has been really profound on a number of different levels, partly in laying up and helping the community to get some of these project partnership proposals over the line. So, you know, kudos to you. I think building on what you're saying, we as a community need to have an honest conversation about the projects that didn't get funded this time round, and what we can do to make sure that those that are still good and we want to come back and be part of Fund 13, that they feel welcomed, and that we want, as was said earlier on by Ubio, it's just the not just yet. This is the first time we ran, you know, the partners round. It was only ever going to fund 4 to 6, right? How do we pick? It's an almost an impossible position to be in, right? As a community, and even as a shortlisting panel. There's a lot of good quality there. How do we make sure that we don't demotivate people from participating again? And the role that I think CF can play is helping to elevate those conversations and making sure that, you know, the needle is still threaded and not frayed is the point. So, you know, I hope to work closely with you over the coming weeks to make sure that we're getting that messaging right with these people, and that they come back in just a few weeks' time, participate again, hopefully putting even more value add into their proposals. We've got a bit more time now to think about the strategy to raise the platform so people can participate in voting and understand that these projects are coming to life, right? If they participate.
Yes, 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 and yes.
Nice. Easy one.
No, it is. I think that's a super important thing. It's like how, because I think what many members of the Cardano community don't realize is the level of work that's required to manage different stakeholders. And the fact is, people are not necessarily lining up to build on Cardano. People aren't even necessarily lining up to build in Web3 generally, right? The hype right now with most organizations that I've spoken to, that I've seen others speak to and kind of been privy to, that is, it's AI. It's all about AI, right? So management wants to see how innovative are we on AI? Do we understand AI? Probably not, but we need to do something on AI. And this was the case with blockchain and Web3 at the last bull market, right? During COVID, I was like, okay, what are we doing in Web3? What are we doing in blockchain? All this kind of stuff. And we are at a disadvantage as Cardano, where we only have Catalyst as a grant funding instrument. And we are currently limited within Catalyst on a periodic cycle with certain voting patterns, but all of this is obviously being worked on as well, right? Like, we have certain proposals that are going to make the UX UI way easier. We have certain proposals that are being worked on where alternative voting schemes are going to be set up. And so that is progress. And so that is going to kind of push us further. But I think it's not only from like the CF side, where like bringing partners and saying, hey, like, let's go to Catalyst with you and like, let's see how we can support you through this, can be challenging. I think what's more challenging is smaller projects that are startups in the ecosystem that are doing massive work. And I'm not going to name them here, but I'm sure you know who they are. They're doing massive work in trying to onboard massive multinationals who, and at the same time, these same startups are being baited in other ecosystems by the traditional splash your cash business development approach. I think Cardano actually has an opportunity here to be a little bit slower than the others, where we don't have to make the same mistakes that the splash your cash biz dev ecosystems have done. We can study what worked really well with them and what didn't work, and we can do better. Let's call it like a research-driven approach. I think that's what we're supposedly known for. So you know, Catalyst is a part of that. This partner track is a massive learning opportunity, and it has been already. And and again, like Catalyst is a massive learning opportunity for the CF. So we're going to be working hard. We're going to be chatting with Chris and Danny and the Catalyst team over the coming weeks to see, okay, how do we make sure that whoever doesn't get funded understands that there is a continuation of this, there's an approach, there's a plan, and then again, that the CF is able to iterate to serve this particular stakeholder group better, right? With our platform, with our ADA, with our expertise in-house, whatever you might see it as, and that still remains to be defined. But I've spoken long enough, and Uvio, you've had your hand up for a while.
Oh yeah, like you're giving us good information, so I think it's awesome that you keep speaking. Yeah. Okay, yeah, Alex, maybe just bringing up questions from the community, what people have been asking, so maybe you can directly respond. So one such question is, did you guys vote against any project? Because I think the post only showed us proposals that you guys voted for, so that CF voted for. So people are also interested if you voted against. And then also, was there any specific reason why you guys voted with only 20 million ADA? Is it going to be the norm, or in the future is it going to change? And if it changes, what should we expect? So those are like some questions I've heard people ask.
I mean, that's a fair point. So like Danny said, there are no against votes. There are only yes and abstain.
Oh, sorry, abstain. I wanted to say, did you guys vote abstain as well?
No. We wanted to be as transparent as we could be with our votes. So I think you'd probably be able to kind of find that out. Because I think that's one thing that we try to do as the foundation, is try to be as kind of transparent as we could with our voting. And so if we said we voted on this, we voted on this proposal, and we're not kind of telling you that we did off-chain and then on-chain we're actually voting for something entirely different. So that was like one of the reasons for that. And then when it came to the 20 million, you know, like you'll see in Felix's posts in the chats, CF pretty much has most of its wallets balanced at 20 million ADA. This is for operational purposes. In a nutshell, my salary and the salary of people at CF and OPEX just generally is funded by staking rewards. So we do have a strong interest in the Cardano protocol surviving. But so that was really from an operational perspective, right? It doesn't make sense to rebalance wallets to a certain defined amount that kind of jumps between that. In the past, when we voted in Fund 7 and Fund 9, our wallets have been balanced around 15 million ADA, and that's 14.5-ish to be more precise. And that was why we voted with that voting power on the challenge setting proposals in Fund 7 and Fund 9. And then would there be an increase in voting power? That still, or would it remain the same? That still remains to be determined. I think we need to do a lot more analysis on how much of voting power of 20 million ADA actually had as an influence on getting proposals through or not. And that isn't something that we can just necessarily do purely by looking at the overall, you know, stake that voted, or voting power, that the registered voting power that actually voted, but actually go category by category and actually look at each specific proposal at the boundary and see whether we actually bump that thing up or not, right? So that we'll need to do a lot more analysis to determine that, and as a baseline. And then it's looking more at the, let's say, regardless of that, do we want to bump up the voting power? Do we want to bump it up in increments of 20 based on like operational wallet setup, 40 million, 60 million, 80 million, 600 million? That's a big scary number that people really don't want us to vote with. And I think you don't
1
have
billion ADA.
We don't even have 1 billion ADA, Chris. What are you talking about?
I'm just doing Dr. Evil finger.
But yeah, that's the whole thing, right? So
ADA.
I think obviously a massive concern of the community is like, oh, these guys, they're just going to absolutely tip the scale.
No, it's not
We
like
could do the evil laugh and do that, right? Like there's nothing preventing CF or any large holder of ADA stake to actually do that. With Catalyst and with any other form of treasury governance, whatever. So I think it's always important to think around that and think, okay, how do we build resilient systems against that? And I think a good way to do that is to look at alternative voting schemes, which is being done as a systems improvement proposal actively being worked on the Catalyst operator and others. So I think there's an interesting number of factors, right? The voter distribution has two absolutely massive whales, MinSwap, and I don't know which one the other is. And you know, with 75 million ADA, that's pretty powerful, and that has a lot of capacity to tip the scales. And liquid, okay, yeah. So two DeFi platforms. Does CF want to say, hey, like, you know, we want to make sure that we can get into that range? Maybe, maybe not. That's still something to be determined, and that's still something we want to work on with the community, how we work with the broader community to decide on things, to look at stuff. So yeah, none of these things are final, but the idea was really to kind of minimize in this fund the impact that we would have, and it just to kind of test out what happens, and especially understand internally at CF. And yes, Simon, yeah, matching and raising if we're going to do like some poker stuff, but probably.
How does it feel internally, Alex, when once you've voted and you know it's first time, right? Like, does it feel good? Like there's progress, there's support for it, or is it very anxious or somewhere in between? And you know, what's the empathetic view?
I think overall really positive in terms of what we just did, and really keen to kind of build up a lot more on what we have done. Personally, it was a relief, and I think an important kind of milestone. And actually, I was in Rome, and I felt like we crossed the Rubicon when we voted. For those that don't know, the Rubicon's the river that many people crossed over when they would kind of conquer Rome.
Got it. Alex, I have a question about the effort that the Cardano Foundation is making to onboard. You know, actually in South America, I see that there is a lot of activity for Cardano Foundation. So in terms of governance, what are the efforts that the Cardano Foundation is doing to help sustainability? Just, you know, it's a very broad question, but can you put it in a few words so we can kind of have it for the record on the recording?
Okay, I just need to quickly run downstairs and grab my Uber Eats. I'll be right back, Juan.
Let's give him a second then. But actually, on this point here,
awesome.
but I think what is really cool is like, I think one of Catalyst's biggest values is it's like I think Dor mentioned this earlier also, this sort of a capacity builder, right? It's an environment where we can test, experience, and learn a lot. And for CF, it's just awesome also to say, hey, cool, we have the sandbox, we have this playground there. Let's build our training methods here to figure out how to engage in larger governance then later as well, right? CRP 694 is coming for sure. I think even for IoT, there's some really, really good experiences and very valid lessons made with Catalyst, right? So
yeah, you got to feel that way. You've got to take those steps and put yourself into those arenas in order to be able to understand the boundaries and the limits and the tensions and the issues and the opportunities that it affords. You know, that is the point of innovation, right? You've got to push the envelope. That's what they've done this time round by stepping into the ring for the first time properly. It's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting idea if we talk about liquid and min swap, the idea of a backstop against, you know, what does that even look like? What are we even talking about? How do they make their decisions? But we are moving into this era of delegate representation, and chances are is going to have a massive impact on Catalyst. We're already beginning to see it.
Yep.
And yeah,
I'm just
exactly that, Danny. You know, it is a DAO. Yeah, so it's super interesting, the dynamics that are playing out when just 3 years ago we were imagining this beginning to play out, and it is.
Yep.
Yep. And
Guys,
then
I unfortunately have to drop off, so I'm gonna wish you good evening. Good to speak to you. Good to see you. And
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, Chris. Juan, just to about sustainability, talking about blockchain for good. Yeah, so that's
Yeah, well, make sure that the algorithm stays the same, that there is not, you know, the bad actors that doesn't help the ecosystem and turn the vision of Cardano in a different way. That's what governance is all about. So what is I know that there is a lot of effort from Cardano Foundation to fulfill that, and I know that there's been a lot of activity by Cardano Foundation in South America. So wanted to have some ideas from you in which way you guys are focusing that work to ensure that you know the ecosystem stays steady and there is no bad actors that. So just to know your opinion on that.
so Cardano is a public permissionless blockchain, right? So there's nothing much, you know, you can't prevent people from using a permissionless computing network, but you can support those that have or promote the ethical use of a technology, and you can try to promote, from a governance perspective, actions that also relate to the ethical use of the blockchain. On that, there'll probably be some really exciting kind of news coming out of the CF in the coming months that relates specifically to how this kind of intersects a little bit with governance. And then, of course, looking at how, you know, from a, let's say, enterprise adoption perspective, some of our key priorities include authenticity, traceability, and sustainability. And so hopefully that can also kind of support, let's say, the blockchain for good aspect of things.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, very nice. Thank you for the answer. Yeah, I just wanted to you know, to make I'm very I liked a lot the two breakout rooms that you made for marketing, and there were awesome questions there. I hope there will be another one. Is there going to be another one?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, as we start kind of gearing up for Fund 13, I think it'll be helpful to kind of pick up some feedback and test some ideas with the Catalyst community there.
Nice. Thibaut, you have a raise hand? Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I was around in one of the workshops in Intersect, and there was a discussion about opt-in that was told it has or is going to have a tool that you can buy voting power. And I wonder if this is a rumor or is this going to be a thing, and has there been discussions how this will affect the Catalyst, or this is more out there intersecting and you cannot buy the Catalyst votes?
It's actually a real thing. It was first used, I think, last funding round. And what you can do is just, you get a bond or a loan, literally, what you can take for a short-term period with very little, let's say, payment in return. And it's just go on the platform, actually. And wait, I sent you the link in the live chat here.
Yeah, I was on the right link. But,
It's used, but not sure if that much actually, to be honest. I think, yeah, what MinSwap or Liquid is doing plays more of a role. But actually, one interesting point where it's going to, it's I think Optum finds that to take a loan to vote is not that much the issue, but to see this emergence of voting markets, right? To say, oh, I can buy votes very easy with my vote. Because this is actually right steering into this direction. And this is something what you should be careful about, right? To say, oh, it's technically feasible to build voting markets like an eBay for voting on Cardano. But when you think about it, it sounds cool, but it's actually quite dangerous. But then we are quite a while here already, more than an hour. I hop off because I'm going to eat. I mean, I stopped the recording. But before doing this, thanks a lot to everybody for joining, sharing, listening, being here. Bunch of good old people and faces here still around. That's awesome. This feels really like it's not like a family. It's like sort of a tribe. Yeah, you're awesome. Congrats everybody for Fund12 who made it, and for those who didn't, yeah, you know what to do. We learn, we iterate, and we improve, and we are back for the next funding round. Have a lovely week. You're awesome. Please stay awesome. That's it.